Putin tests Trump after dropping a 3-ton bomb on Kyiv in the Zaporizhia region. In yet another demonstration that the Kremlin intends to respond to the setbacks suffered behind the lines with brutal force against Ukrainian territory. Images released by Russian sources on Monday, July 13, 2026 claim to show a F-3000 hitting the city area. The attack comes just a few days after Donald Trump met with Volodymyr Zelensky, announced a license for Ukraine to produce Patriot interceptors, and backed new sanctions against Moscow. Putin got the message, but chose to increase the pressure. While Ukraine chokes off Russian routes in the Sea of Azov, hits refineries, and worsens the fuel shortage in occupied Crimea, Russia launches guided bombs on cities, transportation, and civilian areas. Sumy, Odesa, and Zaporizhia once again felt the weight of this offensive. The dispute now puts the White House's credibility with European allies under direct pressure. Moscow wants to find out if Trump's promises will be turned into defense, sanctions, and real costs for the Russian war machine. How far does Putin intend to go? Why is he challenging Trump now? How will Washington respond? The images of the FAB-3000 were released by channels linked to Russia and still do not allow for an independent and complete assessment of the exact point of impact and the damage. Even so, the announced use of this bomb in Kyiv carries military and political weight. The city is located near the front line in Zaporizhia and serves as a barrier to the Russian advance. Moscow uses glide bombs to strike areas from aircraft that stay away from some of the Ukrainian defenses. The intention is to destroy positions, clear the way for ground troops, and spread fear among residents near the front. The Kremlin also turns the images into propaganda at a time when its ships, refineries, and supply routes are under pressure. The Russian offensive hit Sumy with 3 guided bombs on July 11th. The latest report raised the death toll to 5, including a 13-year-old girl, and the total number of injured to 43. 2 bombs fell in a busy area near a road and a public transport stop. The third hit an infrastructure facility, buildings. That's it. And other establishments suffered damage. Ukrainian authorities have opened an investigation into a possible war crime. The update also corrects the initial report of 32 injured people that was released while teams were still assisting the victims. Odesa was attacked on the morning of July 13. Russia hit a transport company, set buses on fire, and damaged houses and a sanatorium. 5 people were injured, including a 5-year-old child. Thank you. A transport company was hit, buses were set on fire, and houses and a sanatorium were damaged. 5 people were injured, including a 5-year-old child. The garage management reported that 15 buses were destroyed while other vehicles were damaged. Intercity routes and international services had to be Zelensky reacted by saying that Russia was winning against buses, residential buildings, and a hospital, a direct criticism of the type of targets hit. Ukraine responded by concentrating fire on the logistics that support the occupation. The commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces, Robert Broft, reported that 15 more Russian vessels were hit during the early hours of July 13. The campaign's count reached 105 ships in 8 days. Among the most recent targets were 7 oil tankers, 5 cargo ships, 1 barge, and 2 tugboats. Kyiv claims that these vessels transport fuel, goods, and resources used by Russia in occupied Crimea and in the southern sector of the invasion. The effect has already reached a strategic economic route. Navigation in and out of the Sea of Azov has remained limited for security reasons, according to industry sources interviewed by Reuters. Ukraine has managed, with lower-cost drones, to put pressure on a route that supplies the occupation and handles a significant part of Russian trade. The fuel shortage is not just war rhetoric. Ukrainian attacks on refineries, depots, trucks, and ships have reduced supply in several Russian regions. Lines have grown, prices have risen, and authorities have banned some exports to protect the domestic market. Occupied Crimea has adopted rationing. It suspended sales during certain periods and limited authorized purchases to 20 liters. The problem has also reached occupied areas of Kherson and Zaporizhia, where fuel is needed for military vehicles, generators, and supply transportation. The war that Putin tried to keep distant has started to appear at gas stations, in commerce, and in transportation. To everyone, so that fools get the hell out.
Continuation. Get rid of Vanka. He's hugging you.
Donald Trump enters this crisis after changing his tone with Zelensky. The two met in Ankara on July 8 during the North Atlantic Treaty Organization summit. Trump stated that the United States would grant a license for Ukraine to manufacture Patriot interceptors, a decision awaited by Kyiv to strengthen protection against missiles and air attacks. 2 days later, American senators said they had reached an agreement with the Trump administration to move forward with a measure. The new proposal includes sanctions against Russia and against buyers of Russian energy. Putin responded to the signs of pressure with more attacks. Sources close to the Kremlin told Reuters that he rejects a ceasefire under the current conditions and considers an escalation likely in the coming months. The President of the United States promised new tools for Kyiv, and Putin is betting that he can raise the cost before these measures produce results. The European reaction is still slow. Kaja Kallas reported on July 13 that the European Union had not finalized the 21st broad package of sanctions against Moscow. The representatives were discussing the inclusion of 250 people and entities on the sanctions list, but they remain divided over restrictions on maritime services and Russian liquefied natural gas. This delay benefits the Kremlin, which relies on energy revenues, parallel routes, and intermediary companies to sustain the war. In Paris, Zelensky presented a ballistic missile defense program alongside European leaders. Ukraine and 9 other nations announced a coalition to develop joint protection against this type of threat. Emmanuel Macron, Friedrich Merz, and other representatives advocated for more air support and new measures against Russian operations. Does the response need to reach the battlefield before the next bomb? Defense systems, ammunition, industrial production, and financial pressure require quick decisions because Sumy, Odesa, and Kyiv cannot wait for the pace of meetings. Washington will have to show whether Trump's approach to Zelensky will produce interceptors, sanctions, and enough pressure to change the Kremlin's calculations. Putin is betting on fear, Western fatigue, and political delays. Ukraine is betting on cutting off fuel supplies. The routes and bringing the cost of the invasion all the way to the Russian rear. The pressure is now on Trump, while Moscow prepares the next offensive and Kyiv tries to prevent another massive bomb from reaching a Ukrainian city. Thank you very much for watching this video until the end. Support our project and contribute financially using the Pix key that appears on your screen. We are an independent channel focused on keeping you informed with the facts. Your contribution helps us. It helps us keep going.